that I thought of last week. So on Friday, we had an all members meeting, and it was very well attended. We had about 120 members from across the East Midlands. And what became evident is there's lots of issues around online learning. It's obviously a challenge for everyone. And what I thought might be a good idea is to try out having a teach meet, to run a bit of CPD, just to give some ideas and have a forum to basically share ways. Because what I found, I think our school, Steve's kindly agreed to help do some presenting. Me and Steve worked together in Loughborough. And I think our school was one of the first to go online last summer with some lessons. And we've learned an awful lot. And we don't pretend to be experts, but what we have found is that by playing around and experimenting and trying things out, we've come up with a number of strategies that just make our lives easier. And hopefully, if we can kind of share that, then that will help make other people's lives easier, and other people might have ideas as well to share. And it's one of those things that we're all in a situation of online learning. We've never done it before. We've not really been trained to do this. And so we're kind of all learning on the job. But I think if we share it together, we can find positive ways of working around the problems. Alongside, obviously the union's there to support people with workload issues, things like that. But if we can find positive solutions, then that's a really good way of moving forward. So I was going to start with a short presentation, and again, apologies if some of this, it may be a case of certain things you may already know, and preaching to the converted. But the key thing is we're going to go over a number of ideas. Hopefully, won't be on it too long, so everyone's had a long day. Should be hopefully done by just after kind of 7:30, and then people can ask a few questions if they want to. We're just going to talk for a couple of ideas that we've tried as strategies that have been very, very helpful and help workload. Some may be more useful than others, but take what you will. So I'm going to attempt to share screen and get up my Google Forms. So I'm going to do a little talk first on Microsoft Forms. And Microsoft Forms is accessible. So anyone's got access to Outlook 365. So I think most schools have access to Outlook 365 through Office. And Microsoft Forms is a very, very useful tool, we find, for getting mass feedback, and has massively reduced in terms of things like marking and checking work. I know there's been a lot of issues around needing to check students are participating in lessons, uploading data, etc. So there's a few things we've kind of learned that I wanted to share that you may be doing something already, but might be easier. And it's also useful for both remote learning and online lessons. So if you're setting videos or online lessons, they both work really well. If you go on to Forms, but what you need to do is basically create a quiz. And what basically comes up is this, and you can basically add questions. And the problem I've got here is the gallery is slightly in the way of my screen. Much better. And very simply, if you've not used Forms before, if you click Add New, you get a number of options. You can go multiple choice, you can do text, short text, long text. What we found is very, very useful is setting up knowledge-based tests, particularly if SLT are saying, oh, you need to every week check work or have some sort of data. We found the easiest way of doing it is just to simply have a multiple choice quiz. The reason multiple choice works really well is because it will mark itself. So it takes away any need to do any marking. And so what we've done in remote learning, we're moving to online learning from next week for all years. This is a year 9 lesson. We've actually, when we've recorded lessons, you can actually put a link to a YouTube in the question. So our first question is simply a link to a YouTube lesson, and there's a wonderful show. It basically just loads straight into YouTube. Hello. And you've got my awful lesson on what the changes in American society during the 1920s. I realise you can all hear my voice, and I listen back and I hate hearing my voice when it's played back to me, so I won't play that. You can embed that in and put a link in, which is actually very useful. The second top tip we've done is always include a question which says which class you're in, because you can this quiz. I've created this. I've shared it with all year 9 teachers, so their work is done. And all students in year 9 can basically respond to the same quiz. But when you want to look at the data, if you just put a little which class you're in, for example, 9ABC, that means that on the data you can filter it by class, which means individual class teachers can check just their class rather than to sift through loads of data. And very simply, we've gone for multiple choice. The reason multiple choice is great is you can enter your own personal answers. You could have what date was it passed, and they could have to write the 19th of August, 1920. But what we found is some kids will write the date shorthand, some will write it longhand, some will not use the TH, some will spell August wrong, and then it will mark it wrong. So using a multiple choice is quite an easy way of doing it. And you can see what we've done there is you kind of just, descriptors that are similar or things that are close, so the students have to pay attention. With videos, you can even put in questions where question 4, the question isn't actually on the form. They have to watch a video, and you tell them the question in the video, so they can only answer the question properly if they've actually watched a video. You call it, learning point 1, and when you get to say, right, this question you need to answer now, it's learning point 1 on your quiz, and that's a nice little way of forcing them to watch the whole video if it's a recorded lesson. And equally, we're going to move to online lessons, live learning, and what we're going to do with that is simply every 2 weeks is give them this knowledge-based quiz, like we would in school. We'd give them a quiz every week or so to just sort of test their knowledge. We're going to do that in each lesson. And what's really nice about forms is this button here. You can click share. And if you go share, there are a number of things you can do. You can copy the link for responses, and that can be emailed to students very quickly. If you've got distribution links or using Teams, you can copy that link, and that's how the students access it. But you can also share a link to Collaborate, which you can give to staff, so staff can see the responses and see what's being shared. And if you wanted to, you can duplicate. So if you want to do it class by class and every teacher have their own class, you can also send a duplicate link, and then you can create your own. It's how I created this one, because I didn't want to obviously let you all see the responses for my year 9s, but I've got some staff to do it for me as a bit of an experiment. And what it does very quickly is it comes up with this, and it gives you an average score. And if schools are pestering you for feedback and marking, and obviously that's very difficult checking answers, very quickly I can look down here and they say, oh, what was students, if my head says to me, what students struggling with, how do you know? Well, immediately I can say, worryingly, one of my colleagues got this question wrong about how do women dress, and click long dresses, and we were winding up all day over it because we made a mistake. But you can see them, and you can feedback. You can do feedback to students. I think Jill later is going to mention this, but one thing we've also done, you can insert several videos. So we've done feedback videos. So rather than having to send lots of emails to students with feedback, we've looked at this data, and then we then created a short video, 2 or 3 minutes, where we say, okay, some of you got the 19th Amendment wrong. Remember, it was passed on the 18th of August 1920, which is one allowing women to vote in America. So you can kind of reteach things, and feedback videos all using this. It's a very efficient way of doing marking. You can do longer answers, and we tend to mark them out of 3, and we just do a very quick flick. You can go into review answers. You can very quickly flick through and type grades, and if you wanted to with that, and actually with a review next and a click, you can actually give a very quick judgment on longer answers quickly if you need to produce quick data. But the other thing we do then is what do you do with this? If you've got this data, how do you load it into anything useful? And what you can do is you can download a spreadsheet in Excel. Now, I found in the first week of this new lockdown, we're being told you have to enter something for every student in every class every week to say whether students were submitting work or not. And quickly I was like, oh, so that's a huge, I got, in history we teach 400 odd students each, and kind of panic ensues. So our solution, and this is our kind of second thing, was you can actually upload marks very, very quickly using forms. So if you click on that link, and then I'm going to have to do a new share to get my my PowerPoint up. You then can open this up, and it very quickly will generate you a spreadsheet, and it will give you the name of the students, and it will give you total points. So you can very quickly create a spreadsheet that will give you all the information you need. You can sort by total points, you can sort by class, you can actually filter by class. So if teachers want to see just their class, you can filter, and then, if I'm trying to look for all the answers for 9A, because that's my teaching class, you can click on that, filter it, and then very quickly upload the data. Or what I've been doing, and my colleagues have been doing, is you can upload an entire year group in one go. We use Go for Schools. I think there's similar for Sims, but I'm going to explain from kind of a Go for Schools point of view, and I think Sims works similar. And basically, very quickly, at the end of the week, I can upload, it takes me about 20 minutes to do it, I can upload 220 students' data sets onto Go for Schools, and then I can download a list of students who've got no work submitted, and then copy and paste into an email, and I've emailed all the students who haven't done any work, and that can be done very, very quickly. So I'm going to talk you through kind of the idea of it, and that's, so we create this spreadsheet. What you can actually do is copy and paste the names first from the spreadsheet into a new Excel document. So you take basically names from one to the other. What you can then do is if you click on data and then you go to text to columns, it will actually separate the names, because when you want to upload onto something or sort alphabetically, you want it the first and second names separated. So you do that and it will separate the names into 2 columns. Then what you need to do is drag the surnames basically into the A column. So you basically just do a copy, a cut and paste job once they split, and then you end up with the names separated. You then, go for schools, need to leave a column for UPN, because it will look for the UPN number when you upload marks, and then you just copy and paste the marks across. So bit of copy and pasting, you get the entire year group's marks very quickly into this document. If you then save it as a CSV comma delimited file, so when you go save as, you click CSV comma delimited, that will basically convert it into a format that can be directly uploaded onto Go for Schools. And if you were to go on to Go for Schools on a mark book, you normally have an upload marks column. You may need to get the permission set to allow you to do that, but it is possible to do it. And basically, you can upload straight into the column. So I could have a quiz set up. So year 9, work submission, week beginning the 25th, and a mark out 10. And I literally would click on that and upload it. And all the marks appear there straight away. And Go for Schools, and you can reverse that process. Go for Schools allows you to do a Subject Explorer and download a CSV file with a list of students who haven't done it by filtering out non-submitted. And I found that's a very, very quick way of getting lists of students who haven't to make email lists. That just allows me to very quickly contact people without what we're doing in the first week of lockdown, which was everyone individually going through the spreadsheets, trying to enter data onto Go for School individually, trying to make lists of students manually. Actually, by doing this, by creating one spreadsheet, a CSV, upload all the data at once, you can download in one go, copy and paste into a BCC on email, and you're good to go. But mainly a little tinkering. There's different ways of playing around doing it. The principle is one that we found very, very useful when SLT comes saying, oh, we need all this data on the system, we need to check students' work, etc. That we can very quickly basically generate data, and one person creating a quiz, and you cover an entire year group for a week or fortnight or whatever. Hopefully that was useful. I realised that I cannot actually see the chat if loads of people are asking questions. Cool, Google. Some people are saying Google Forms will do the same, which is excellent. We're using Microsoft Forms. I think Google Forms works similar, but it's a really useful thing, and particularly multiple choice. You can very quickly get large amounts of data. If people are asking for data, and it does it automatically for you, and it marks it. I know there's a lot of pressure at the moment to kind of be tracking student progress. Ofsted talked about showing student progress, and I know that's a big thing. There's a very, very easy way of doing it. You can create a multiple choice quiz, you can create data, and you can download and upload it to where it needs to be. At that point, I'm going to hand over to Steve, who is going to talk through an app called Nearpod that we have found really, really useful in the last couple of weeks. We've only just discovered it, but he's going to have a go at it.
Right, can you hear me, Luke?
Yeah.
Excellent. Firstly, again, I'm no expert. I've just clicked some stuff and played around and learnt bits and pieces, and I'm sure there'll be some people in this meeting who've done more and know more, and it'd be brilliant if we could sort of share some bits and pieces. Now, my view on what Nearpod is it's a platform to enhance engagement and monitor student work remotely. I see it as my exercise book part of a remote lesson. So in a classroom, you'd be walking around, having a look at books, seeing what kids are doing, you're keeping your eye on them. And I see Nearpod as near to that as possible. And it's linked to Microsoft 365 and Google, which means that you can have that control and the element of, you know who is in there and everything that they're doing. Now, that last point there is what I'm going to start with as kind of the safety thing. So I tried this, somebody in our school introduced it or mentioned it to us last week. I thought, let's have a play with it. I said, set up a lesson. Luke instantly went on trying to break the system and trying to find as many flaws he could find. And before I knew it, I had loads of people logged in who were all Luke with numerous joke names. So I played around with the settings, and that's the first thing I want to just show you. So one of the features you can do is you can sort of make things safe by locking and only allowing 365 users on. So how you do that, if you click up here, I'll show you how you log on in a second. It's really intuitive. You click through with your Office 365 account when you search Nearpod on Google. So when you've clicked through, you've come through with your Office or your Google school login, if your school's linked to Office or Google, depending on which sort of package you've gone with. It comes up with a screen that looks like this. You click the grey man in the top corner, and it takes you through to your settings. If you choose your advanced settings down here, okay, it gives you this choice down here to enable student names to autofill. What that means is the students log in through their Office 365 account or Google, depending on which platform your school's on, which means that they come through with their sort of official names. And again, that just gives that element of safety, that element of control. You know who's entering what, and you know it's your classroom then, okay? Which was a bit of a concern that some colleagues have had, you know, using that sort of similar products before. But that just little tip there, just to make sure that as you start the class, it's on your terms. What I wanted to do next, okay, now as we just briefly introduce that sort of boring safety thing, is just talk about how I go about planning or preparing for a live lesson, and how Nearpod helps me do that. So big thing that sort of has come to my head, or come to my, when I first started teaching live year 11 lessons, it was like, you know, I'm reinventing the wheel, I'm changing everything, but that was nonsense. That doesn't need to be the case, okay? What I decided I needed to do was to tweak what I already had, okay? So my sort of plan of thought that I sort of started going about would be, I'd open the existing PowerPoint. You know, I've taught this lesson before. It was good last year. It worked last year. So I'm going to use the same lesson. Let's open the PowerPoint. Let's see what it is. Identify what I want students to learn. Look at the existing tasks. So what would I be expecting the students to do in a classroom? And then I'd start thinking, what would I need to do to adapt it so I can make it digital? To make it so I can work with the students at home, but I'm still, you know, got a handle and got an idea of what they're doing. Now, at this point, I'm going to pause because this is my sort of thought process for a moment, and I'm going to show you back onto Nearpod and how Nearpod works, or some of the features that Nearpod can have. Okay, so you've opened up your Nearpod, you've started off, and you're going to create a lesson here. Okay, so if you click this create here, and it then takes you through to your next slide where you've got some options like this. And what you then do is you click add slide. So with the add slide, you've got a couple of options. So you've got content. So if you wanted to upload, and there's some fun things here that may not be that useful. And there's the activities, which are the things that I think are more useful. So if you click on the activities, you've got these 10 different things that all are slightly different, but all things that you may do in an actual classroom. And again, it's this idea of I'm trying to bring as much of a real classroom experience to my remote lesson as possible. So these are the tasks that you can build into your lesson. Well, these are the tasks, for want of a better phrase, the activities. And how I would do this, and I'll show you this in a second, is I'd have my projection, my PowerPoint, my lesson with me, look, this bit here, okay, you know, that I'm doing with the kids on Teams or on Google Hangout or whatever it's called. So I'd be teaching like this, and then at certain times I'd direct students over to Nearpod, okay, to work in their books, and that's where they would complete the work. Okay, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. I want to go through what the different tasks are you can look at and you can use. So the top 5 tasks that I've used so far, there are some others on there, but these are the 5 that I think work and you can get some value from and really get some decent feedback. So you've got open-ended question, which is a chance for students to share an extended answer to a question. So dead simple, you type a question up on the slide, it comes up, they just type away. Well, the advantages of these, it gives you a focus on written work, okay, which, you know, if you're looking to get some quality written work and really have some, again, like you would in a classroom, that gives you a really good sort of structure. You can give students live feedback. So if students submit their answer, okay, it comes up on your screen and you can then see what little Johnny has typed in. What then that means you can do is you can say, right, great start, but then you've got no evidence. I'm a history teacher. You've got no evidence to prove your point. Okay, can you include some evidence? Can you think back to that bit there? And then they can click the edit button, they can try again, and they can resubmit, and you can, you know, really, and that live feedback, like you would have in a classroom, where you've got to try and get around 30 kids to look in 30 books. Well, actually, you've got 30 answers on your screen that a quick glance, you can clearly see, well, that's working, that's not working. So you gives you that real flexibility to adapt and to change to whatever that sort of is in front of you. There is a share function with the answers, which allows you to show if somebody's written a really good answer, you can share that answer and you can say, this is brilliant. It doesn't give the student's name, but you can obviously give that student's name. You could share an answer that's not quite what you're looking for, and then you could maybe, well, what's wrong with this? Can we talk it through? Again, if you know your students, you'll know what's appropriate for that in that sort of setting. And again, you can see who's producing what. So you, again, like you would in class, you can walk around, you can see who's producing what, and you can make sure someone hasn't logged on, gone off for a quick nap, okay, and then it's just ticking through. Actually, you're seeing the work and you can see what's coming through. Secondly, the card sort. I've used this one a few times and I think it works really well as a sort of quick little sort of break in the lesson. Last thing you want, or I can imagine you're a kid, you sat through 5 hours of, listening to a teacher talk. If there's no breaks, if there's nothing happening, that could, A, hurt your eyes, but also B, you could drift off for a lot of it. Card sort, dead quick, reinforces the key concepts. You can see how many attempts each student has. If you get your data in and, oh my gosh, it's taken them all 50 goes at doing this simple little card sort, maybe we need to rethink, we need to address some misconceptions. Multiple choice quiz. So this is, like Luke's just shown, but this is within the sort of, within the Nearpod thing and within the Nearpod space. Well-written questions, well-written multiple choice questions are really, really good, okay? If you spend time crafting well-written multiple choice questions, they really expose misconceptions. They give you a lot of useful and sort of pragmatic data to work with. So I'd strongly recommend, multiple choice quizzes. But again, it's about that time writing them. If you make the answers and you similar enough to sort of mislead or to pull out, misconceptions, it's worth doing. You can, if you want, download the data. It's a bit tricky, but it's fairly straightforward. You can download the data if you wanted to, if you're being pressured to fill a mark book or give me some, I need some numbers. So it's got that feature there. And like I said, you can identify misconceptions. The draw it function, I thought would be pointless and a waste of time. It'd be a bit of a waste, as I said, a waste of time. But actually, it can be really powerful in just a little break to bring things together. It's a chance to use images and text in a free space. It can be really engaging. I did it with my year 8 key workers today. I was sort of in the room with them and I said, right, let's just have a play on this because it's going to be what you're doing next week. And they all went, I asked them to draw a diagram to illustrate a 5 rate because we're doing the Great 5 London. And 5 minutes later, they're all there, really proud of the work. I can show the good ones up on the screen. But it really engaged the students and it really worked quite well. That should say box here, sorry. So the text box allows it to be a bit more academic. If you want to insist they then add some labels, if you want to insist they then add a sentence or something, or to develop it, you can get them to add that on. And again, the strength of the draw it feature is as the students are working, you're seeing what's coming through. It's a bit of a lag, but you can still see what's being produced. I did it with some year 11s and was almost giving live commentary as they were coming through. I was saying, oh, this is really good. I've got some colour on this one, which is looking brilliant. And you could really see sort of the improvements being made. And again, it was quite an engaging, quite a sort of fun thing to sort of break up the session. And then there's fill in the blanks. Again, dead straightforward. Good way to go over key content. So what I've done with this one is I've had a slide projected like this one. And the next slide, or they then have to complete the fill in the blanks task. And some of the words have been taken out. Real advantage of the fill the blanks task is they're dead easy to make. All you need to do is copy whatever text you've got from wherever you've got it, copy it, click it in the box, and it's there. And then you just select the words you want to hide or drop out, and it works really powerfully. Okay, so there's some of the tasks and how they can work. Now, going back to what I've said here, this was sort of that slide I said before, my thought process. Well, this third bit here, look at the existing tasks in my original lesson and how am I going to include them? And that's when I start thinking about, well, what Nearpod tasks can I sort of drop in at what section? Okay, so now I'm a bit more familiar with it because I've used it a few times, but it doesn't take long. It is designed to be really accessible, and it will, you will pick it up really quickly if you've got even just a sort of a touch of experience with tech, and just it is really easy just to pick up and play with. Okay. And the Nearpod will work alongside PowerPoint, which is being shown on Teams. Now, you could make all the presentation on Nearpod. I don't like that because I think it's quite clunky. So I prefer having, as I've said, that idea of two spaces. So that students are on Teams looking at you, like they would be in class. The pens are down, they're focused on you. And then when you direct them over to Nearpod, you get them to do as and what you please. I didn't say it, but it was on that previous slide at the top in red. This idea that you can add timers to a lot of the sessions. And if you add a timer, it just gives you a little bit more control and you can just switch the screen to a task with a timer The students can't do anything because they're waiting for you to press play, which means they've got to be focused as much. They've got to be focused on the lesson. So they're not playing around with whatever they shouldn't be doing. They're focused as much as you can manage on you. Now, I just want to show you how I use it and how you can go live with a class. So this screen here, this PowerPoint with the crown in the background is what the kids would see as they join my Teams lesson. And it says down here, follow the link in the chat box to the Nearpod for the Do It Now. So the task they're expected to fill is going to be a long answer question about what is a bad king. So they're going to try and use these questions here to set them up for King John and Magna Carta. So what I would then do is I'd find my link. So I've made my lesson, I've made my slides. I would then click on the live participation here, okay? Or I'd hover over it, and then it would look like this originally. When I go over it, it would hover and it would change color. I'd then click live participation, and my screen changes to this screen here, this dark navy screen with the big white box in the middle and the five letters, which is my lesson code. The students could then either enter the lesson code, or if you click the link in the middle, it gives you a link that you can copy, and you can drop that into the chat box, and then the students can instantly just click on that chat box, click on the link in the chat box, and it takes them into your lesson. So it takes them into that Do It Now task that they're going to be writing for me, and I'm going to be making sure they're coming through. Okay, I can use that as a way of checking attendance, and I can use that as a way of seeing who's there, and it's it's a way of one of the things so getting everybody to the same point, so those who've arrived on time aren't being held up by somebody whose internet's playing up. So you've got everybody as much as you can at the same point, and that's kind of it's like a lobby, but they're doing something as opposed to them just sort of sitting around waiting. Then I think this is my final slide, one of my final slides, this is just showing, these are all the slides that I would use in my PowerPoint. Okay, so I've just put it on that print mode so you can see them. And every time I've got this blue box is when I'm going to have a Nearpod task in my lesson. So the first task was this one here, and then the second one is a quiz. Okay, so I'd have a multiple choice quiz. So we'd have a bit of a low stakes quiz from the last lesson. So the students would have 7 questions, and they just go through them. And they'd have another open-ended question, which would be, what were the terms of the Magna Carta? So that's from this slide here, so on their Teams, they can see the answer pretty much, because it's up there. But at the same time, what I'm asking them to do is to enter that answer in a full sentence, to show me they can do that, to show me they can develop their answers, to show me they can include the evidence. And what I'm doing is, as they're coming in, I can see them, I can check them, I can then either give them feedback via the microphone, as I said, like you would in class. Then got to fill the blanks here based on some text, and then end with an open-ended question. So what I've changed my lesson from being, I want you to do this in your book, I want you to do this in the chat box. Actually, what I've got now, okay, is as near to as possible, as I've got an exercise book to check. At the end of the lesson, you can download a report with all the students' answers they've typed in, all the quiz answers they've given. The report is really comprehensive, and you can do loads with it if you wanted to, but you don't really need to, because you've been teaching a lesson. You can see who's been engaged, you can see who's been giving you good answers, and you can see who's been sort of joining in. The final thing I wanted to mention was, if you are working with colleagues and you're all using, say, the same PowerPoint for year 7, well, it doesn't make sense for you all to make a series of tasks, so you can share it quite easily. And the way you do that is, when you've got it made in your sort of home screen, you click the 3 dots. That brings up a menu like this that we can see in the sort of second picture. You click the link, you get preview only or editable. If you give your colleagues the editable link, they can then they can download that from the system, from the Nearpod system. That is therefore in your space, in their space, and they can go with it as and how they please. They can tweak it, they can use it as they want. But again, we're saving time, we're cutting down on workload, and we're sort of sharing resources, but at the same time in a sort of successful way. There we go. Excellent. Over to you, back to you, Luke. That's me done, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steve. Much appreciated. Jill was going to share. She's got a few good ideas as well, and a few other apps that might be useful. So I'm hoping that if Jill's there, she's able to share her screen.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. Excellent.
can't get to the bit that allows me to do this. I'm just checking I'm on the right one. Yeah, I am. Okay. So I'm afraid mine's going to be a little bit over here. So I apologise for that. What I've done is I've put together a few ideas of just bits and bobs of stuff that I'm doing. And many of them you sort of do in the classroom and you set for homeworks anyway, but you can use most of this stuff independently, no matter what, how you are broadcasting your lessons. So the first thing is Edpuzzle. I found this really useful because if you give students a video to watch, they don't watch it actively, or they don't watch it and you don't know what they know and what they don't know. So this particular piece of software is free, although you can pay for it to be jazzed up a bit. You can only make so many videos. What I do is I copy and paste a useful clip, often history clips, Steve, from YouTube into Edpuzzle. And then you can embed questions into it. They can either be multi-choice questions or open-ended questions. And the great thing about it is they've got to watch it actively because they've got to answer the question before the video will continue to play on. And you put as many or as few questions in it as you like. You can create classes as well, so that you can get data showing how many questions they've got correct. So you've got your data there that, is useful, as Steve was saying. And but the downside is there are only so many free clips that you can create, and it is an American site and you have to pay in dollars. So, that's the up and the down of it. But I found it really, really useful. And I've even used it at A level, giving open-ended questions, and it's worked really well and they've loved it. The next one might be useful for primary colleagues. This is a site called cram.com, and I've put a little bit of a write-up on these on the side. And this is the one I'm looking at the moment. Within that, there's a few things that we can use within cram.com. Is Stellar Speller. Now this one, you might put a question in or a definition in, and they've got to come up with what the word is, but they've got to spell the word correctly. And they've got to shoot down the letters of the word in the right order before the letters arrive at them and destroy them. So for those of us who are mature, you'll remember Space Invaders. So it's a little bit like that. So that can be quite good fun and encouraged sort of better spelling. Also within the same site is something called Jewels of Wisdom. And I find this really useful for useful bits of information. It might be dates along with what happened in that date. It might be key terms, definitions, that sort of thing, and their description. And what you do is you click on one side and you've got to match it up. So this is your key term, for example, or your date, and you've got to match it up with your definition or what went on that date. And I found that goes down really well. Again, it's free, and you input it once, and that the same information can come up as flashcards that kids can either print out or look at and test themselves on the same site. So you only have to input the stuff once. And if you're very clever, you can match it in with your Stellar Speller, so it's not too complex for them. And if the kids sign into this, they can get on the leaderboard as well, and go into competition with each other, which is quite useful to get it going. So so that's that one. And the next one is just using the same thing to create flashcards with. Next one is Quizlet. Now, none of these are, sort of probably new to a lot of people, but it's just like a reminder, really, isn't it? So Quizlet is one that's sort of great for flashcards. You can play and match them. You can do Quizlet Live, and you could do Quizlet Live in breakout rooms if you wanted to. Breakout rooms are creating little like group work rooms within within the Google sort of Meets. You might, I don't know if you use that or not, but again, quite useful, and I've put a little write-up on the side that you can take a look at. I've just been playing this one with my A-level students today. This is Quiz Is, And again, it's questions and answers, but you'll notice just here, you can see like a list of names. It's really great because you can see who is and who is not participating in your quiz and how well they are doing and how quickly they're getting through it. So that's quite useful, but the scores don't really correlate to a mark book, but it is free. And like the others, there's a phone app, so they can do, they can twiddle around with this on their phones if they want to, even when they get back to school on the way, on the way in, particularly the cram.com stuff. The old favourite, Kahoot. My students still love to do this, and you can do it online or you can assign it as a homework. And I can see Steve laughing here, and we all know it. We've all used it to death, and the kids still love it. Another one that might be useful, Hodder Education, and I've put a link in here. This goes with the Hodder revision guides, and there are loads and loads of quizzes. If you go into this hyperlink here, free quizzes that they can do. They self-mark, which is always good. And you get, they get a score after it, so they can photograph their score and send it in to you. And they also get what they've done wrong. So that one's sort of really useful. So you don't even have to create the quizzes because they're there and they're waiting for you, and they read a certain part of the revision guide and then have a go on the quiz to get them, to get themselves onto it. This one I've not used yet. This is called Mentimeter, but it was on a Teach Me that I went to. I think it was not last weekend, the weekend before. I went to the History Icons Teach Me, if anybody went there. And somebody mentioned that they were using this. It's a bit like Pear Deck, for getting immediate responses to things. But also, if you are talking to a class, you get the word clouds, and you asked students at the end of a part of the lesson to put a word in that best describes, for example, how the Germans felt at the end of the First World War. The words that the students put in the most, and everybody just types in whatever word they want, they get bigger according to how many students do it. So that's really useful in looking at the words that are the biggest to see, just have a finger in the air of how good the student's understanding is. But again, it's not free for long, that one, so I'm sorry. The next one is something I've been doing today, and I love this. Teaching Key Stage 3. This was geography, and we're looking at awesome landscapes at the moment. And I think it's important that we give students as well opportunities to get away from the screen. And because they're at home, we've got loads of stuff that we wouldn't normally have in the classroom, which we need to remember to grab hold of. Things like Lego, things like cakes in the corner, love cakes, things like tissue paper and cardboard. And these are my year 8s, bless them, making some wonderful, they've picked an awesome landscape and they've made it. And then along with these is a little write-up, which includes some geography terms about how they were made, which country they're in, where you can find them, and all sorts of stuff like that. But isn't it nice to get them away? And I tell you from the screen, and what was really making me laugh about this, I just loved it today and yesterday, because I had this with 2 different classes. I asked them to put their cameras on. I put the cameras on. I'm thinking, who are you? And it was somebody's brother or sister sitting next to them, making their own or joining in. I had another one, the guy who did the Lego thing, just loved it. His brother's taking to bits models that they've made together to model it. And this little girl, her mum and her were making the cake together. So it was just great. And I think it's so good for mental health as well. So that's that. And my next thing is thinking about enrichment and about extending. Now, what I've done is I've made this for my year 8s studying the Tudors, and what they can do, again, we've got great opportunities here to actually give them more because they're at home, they're bored, they've got nothing to do. So these link through, these pictures are all hyperlinks, and they link through to stuff that they can do to, if they're interested in that, they can go a bit further. So for example, this one takes you through to a virtual tour of the Tudor world. This one takes you through to an ebook, a documentary about the Spanish Armada, a little quiz about the Tudors. These are already prepared. I haven't prepared them. They're already there sitting on the internet. And all I've done is I've just gone through and put hyperlinks and made little tasks to go with them. And also they've got loads of time to perhaps watch some films that might help their learning. So I've put some films, books as well that they might like to look, and they don't have to buy these or find them. They're already available free on the internet. So my idea is let's use them. So there's an opportunity to take it further, to extend a task, to do, you know, and there's something for every sort of ability range as well. So that's that. And then just a few things very quickly about the Google Suite. This is what we use in school, and I found some brilliant things that are more than just what I was doing before. So I'm keen to tell you about them. So in terms of Google Docs and Google Slides, you spend hours typing and it's doing my head in. So I found quite by accident that if you go onto Google Chrome and you make that your engine, whatever, that powers things, and then go back into the Google Suite, I found that I don't have to type any longer. I can talk. And it's so accurate as well. And you can really quickly make something specific for students. It's really great. And I can't believe that, you know, you can tell it to put full stops in. It's not good at going on to new lines, or it doesn't embold, but just saving time on the typing. So, you know, really great. No extra charge, no messing around. All you do is load up your Google, you know, install Google Chrome, open it up as normal, your classroom. You go into tools and you go into voice speaker notes, and it is there immediately. Love it. Another one, this is changing my life. A colleague of mine mentioned this at the end of last week, and I've just tried it the last couple of days and I love it. This is something called Mote. It bolts on to it's an app, and it works with the Google Suite again, and you can put voice comments, voice notes on things. It has changed my life with regard to marking. I'm not typing to mark anymore. My students load their work up into Google Classroom, which might be that they're working a Google Doc. It might be they've just photographed something. I read it, I put comments on it, and I might put lots of comments on it because I think it only lasts a minute and a half. And it's really good. It saves me so much time, and the students are using it. And it tells me, believe it or not, A, who's opened it, and B, who's listened to it, which is fantastic. So I know that I'm not wasting my time and marking, and I can chase up the relevant students. Just love that. Love it, love it, love it. And then my final thing, I think it's oh no, it's not quite my final thing. Sorry, I will shut up in a minute. My not quite final thing is breakout rooms. Now, these are brilliant for those students who struggle to engage, who struggle to, or who just want to do group work. You know, it's nice to do some group work tasks. It's so good for mental health. And students who need that little bit of extra support, perhaps. You can put them in groups, so they're working with peer leaders, or you can put them in groups with TAs and you can visit them, and that's worked really well as well. Some students are more likely to ask questions, to get more involved in the learning if they're not next to some super brain box. So you know, you could differentiate your groups, etc. So that's worked quite well, and I've put a link on there which tells you how to do it, and as I've done it, can't be that hard. And Google Forms, which I'm not going to talk about because Steve's talked about that already, but self-marking, again, really useful, good, you know, very sort of useful. Right, I'm done now. Thank you so much. By the way, I haven't come up with this myself. I'm magpieing other people's ideas, so I'm a total fraud. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jill. We've done the same. All these ideas, we've got other people then used, adapted, and so on and so forth. Hopefully that was useful. Just one last one that I found very useful was, I'll put it in the link, but BBC, for BBC backgrounds, BBC have put all of their old sets from sort of classic shows. And if you download you can download them as a JPEG. And then if you go into on Zoom or Teams, you basically go into the option on Zoom, it's on the next to your video, there's a little arrow. And on the thing it says choose virtual background, and you can upload a video. So I'm now sat in the 1983 version of the TARDIS because I'm a bit of a geek. But it's useful if you want to hide your house behind you. I know if you're teaching at home, you don't want students to see your background. Then that's a really good way of uploading. And so it's BBC's trying to help out with that, which is quite useful. Thank you very much for coming. I'm hoping this has been useful. We've just put a quick feedback poll up just to see how you found it, because obviously this is kind of a new idea. We've done teach meets in real life before as a union, but never online. So if you just as you're leaving, if you just click the feedback poll, and 2 questions. One is, how useful was it? We won't take offence if you thought it was useless, but it's good for us just to know roughly how useful it was. And would you like to do another online teach meet? And if people have other ideas they want to share or think they've got things to bring to the party, that'd be great. So that'd be really useful. So thank you very much to Jill and Stephen for giving up their time to help present. It's been really, really helpful. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully it's at least giving you some ideas and things to go around and play with. I know everyone's heads are spinning at the moment, but if anything here does actually help you, makes life a little bit easier, then I think then we're doing our job helping a little bit in terms of workload and CPD. So thank you all very much. Have a good evening, and hopefully see you at other events soon.
Luke, will you email out the PowerPoints?
Yes, we'll email out all the PowerPoints.
So I'm going to end the meeting now. It was good to see you all, and we'll edit the video and make it available to members as soon as we can. Thank you very much to everyone who presented, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Well done, Stuart and Luke.